How's it going, guys? It's Poofy here, bringing you another League video. This time I decided I want to talk about runes, and ever since Season 11 started, it's kind of been a shit show across the Rift. At this point, I think everybody realizes that not every League game is going to go great. 9 out of 10 times, the game's going to feel like your scrotum got stuck in an elevator. Fact of the matter is, League is only fun if you're winning, and one of the best ways to win in League is picking the proper runes. That's why today I'm going to look into Swain. I'm going to see what kind of runes work with them and what don't. Swain's actually a really interesting champion. He has a lot of well-rounded stuff. He has some burst, he has some heals, he can kinda tank. This is why Swain is such a good flex pick right now. He can go anywhere. It doesn't matter. Maybe not jungle, but runes are such an important part of the game, and I feel like a lot of people don't utilize them correctly. They'll go online, type in op.gg, and see whatever faker's playing. Or they'll hop onto Portalfessor and just use whatever they see there. And while yes, it can be helpful if you don't know what you're doing, I feel like knowing what the runes do and why you pick them is more helpful than just picking them, you know? So for most rune pages playing Swain, most of the time you're going to want to take Electrocute. This rune is overall one of the best rune pages for Swain. It gives him an immense amount of poke early game, and it's really hard to contend. It also helps that Swain can proc it almost instantly every time he combos. You simply have to hit your E and pull and Q and then run away, and that's it. A lot of people would take Electrocute because there's no micromanaging to it. You just use it and that's it. Extra damage, everybody's happy. However, I don't recommend taking Electrocute against tanks. The damage against tanks is going to be negligible, you're not even going to notice it. The rune also slowly falls off as you get to late game. It doesn't bring a lot to team fights, so there's options available for that. But if you're just worried about the laning phase and you're fighting someone who can blow you up, you should probably take Electrocute so you can match their burst. I like to call Electrocute a laning rune. It doesn't really do much outside of laning. It's just kind of assurance that you come out of laning phase a little more ahead than you ought to be, which is actually pretty important. But overall, if you don't know what to take, Electrocute is probably fine. Next up we have Fleet Footwork. This isn't a rune I see myself taking a lot, but it's an option. Fleet Footwork is usually what you want to take when you're having a really tough time laning. Like if they're playing a super bully, they have a ton of mastery, they're going to kick your ass, you could theoretically take Footwork. It gives you a nice little heal every once in a while with an auto attack and gives you a little burst of movement speed to dodge some skill shots. It's also a passive rune, so you don't have to do any micromanaging, you don't have to worry about nothing. You just need to auto attack every once in a while and you'll get a heal. The heal is nothing special if it's against a minion if you're ranged, so try to poke the enemy champion with it and you'll get a nice little chunk of healing. You're probably also going to have presence of mind with this, so it's a nice little incentive to auto them. You'll get some presence of mind, you'll get some health, it's really not bad. Late game, this rune is pretty dead. There's not a whole lot it does for you. This rune also doesn't provide any damage whatsoever, so like I said, when it comes to a team fight, it's not going to offer you a whole lot if anything during a team fight. Which usually is the most important part of the game when it comes to late. If you can manage to come out of a laning phase without being a big pile of dookie, then you might be more helpful. So I just want people to know that Fleet of Footwork is there if you need it. I don't recommend taking it, but I can see why people would want to take it. Next rune we have to play with is Conqueror. And personally, this is probably my favorite one to take on Swain. It's just all around a great rune. It gives a lot of teamfight utility. It scales fantastically into the late game. Swain stacks it extremely quick. It gives scaling AP. At max stacks, it also converts some of your damage into healing. And this is all damage. It even converts some of your ignite damage into healing. This rune gives you everything you could possibly want. It gives teamfight durability, it gives you bonus damage, gives you healing. There's not too much to say about it that's bad per se. It has its uses, like every other rune in the game. I do want to note how quick you can stack it though. You hit them with your E, then you pull, Q, E, ignite, and R, that's it, you're fully stacked. It's such an easy combo to do, it really catches them off guard. I don't think a lot of players know this, but Ignite actually gives you 2 stacks of Conqueror. This allows you to fully stack it in one combo, and then you spend your whole ult duration just healing with on top of Conqueror and your casting spells, and it's just a great time all around. Unfortunately, there is a couple bad things about Conqueror. It's actually pretty weak early, you're not going to get a ton of AP, and you're not going to have the cooldowns or all the skills necessary to access it. It does require a somewhat long fight to actually trigger everything. And if you fight an assassin like Zed, a Kali or something, it's going to be hard to hit all your skills, and they're going to be dashing in and out. And overall, it's hard to use. It also sadly doesn't have all the damage in the world. If you're looking for flat damage, Electrocute is still probably going to be your best friend. Conqueror doesn't give you that burst, it gives you sustained damage over a period of time. And that's just what Swain loves. So if you see they have a brawler type mid lane, like say a Yasuo, and if they have a somewhat weak jungler and they try to gank you, if you have Conqueror, you might be able to clutch out a 2v1. It's really that strong in a 2v1 situation. Arcane Comment is also a situational rune you could get away with using. I actually don't mind using it, it's a little different than the other ones. Arcane Comment will shoot a comment after you hit an ability, which sounds great on paper. but they can easily just walk out of it. It does take a little time to travel. It does some pretty okay poke damage. With Swain's W, you can really get away with some cheeky little pokes with Comet. You also reduce the cooldown with hitting abilities, so with your ult and AoE damage, you can get Comet to proc 3 or 4 times per team fight if you can get a bunch of people in it. Swain's Q also counts as multiple projectiles, so every time you hit a Q, you'll reduce the cooldown by about a half. So you can spam it pretty often, but here lies the issue. Comet is extremely awkward to use with Swain's kit, because if you hit your pull and then you pull them if they're too close, you'll actually pull them out of the Comet damage. It's actually pretty counterintuitive what you're trying to accomplish. You save them from the damage. That being said, there is a simple solution to this. Just wait a second before you hit the pull. It's really hard to fight the urge to pull, because that's what you're used to doing. You want to pull. If you do wait a second though, it will work. It's just, ugh. I do have to say though, hitting a Comet is pretty satisfying with W. You can get some pretty cheeky kills. So if you're playing support, you know, you're playing norms with the buddies, give it a try. Honestly, waiting a second before you pull isn't even the worst thing in the world, because it does extend your CC. It's just some situations you need to pull immediately, so you're missing out on your rune if that situation comes up. Next we have is Dark Harvest. This one is also pretty situational. If there are a bunch of squishies, then Dark Harvest probably is the best thing to go. It gives you infinite scaling damage into the late game. It's also great on Swain's W. You can hit from halfway across the map and get a juicy W and they just die because they explode with Dark Harvest. He's actually really good at farming it up because he can just walk down the river, hit a W, come back, and you're all stacked up ready to go. It's pretty good in team fighting because it does give you resets if you kill somebody, and he does a lot of AoE damage, so chances are he's going to get an assist or something, and he's going to proc it. The one bad thing about Dark Harvest is that you need to stack it early. If you don't stack it, it's going to be pretty weak. So if you fall behind, it's not going to be doing all the damage in the world for you, and it's just going to feel kind of shitty. It also only happens when enemies are low, so you're missing out on a lot of damage and other things if you would have a rune that works earlier than that. And finally, we have Phase Rush. Yes, Phase Rush. I know it sounds a little weird, but hear me out. With Swain's easy 3-hit combo, you can proc it pretty reliably. It's probably the safest thing to pick aside from Fleet Footwork. While it doesn't give you any damage or healing, it does give you a lot of kiting potential. If you're fighting somebody that's going to bully you, you can hit them with your abilities and then just run away. You simply hit your E, your pull, and your Q and then run back to your tower and you'll be fine. It's a pretty safe rune all around, beginning, middle, and end of the game. It also gives you a lot of stickiness when you're trying to fight somebody. It really lets you get up in their face and bully them. It doesn't give any extra damage, and it doesn't give you any extra team fighting power. It does give you stickiness, so with your ult and you're running at them, you will keep them in your vicinity longer, which is pretty helpful. But overall, with all the CC in the game and all the bullshit, I just like taking Conqueror. That's my go-to, that's my bread and butter, that's just what I like in Swain. I like being able to run in and just soak up, drain tank, heal, dot, everything. But once again, it's up to personal preference. If you like being the assassin, blowing them up with electrocute, then you do that, that's great. If you like taking Fleet Footwork and healing off that, I mean, go for it, it's up to you. But overall, I'd say that the 3 main runes you want to look into taking is probably going to be Electrocute, Conqueror, and Phase Rush. These 3 are the main ones you're going to want to think about taking. Look at what you're fighting and think about what you need most. If you haven't yet, I recommend subscribing to the channel, it helps me out greatly. Thanks for checking out my video and hopefully becoming a better person when it comes to runes. If you haven't yet, hit that like button and subscribe. It keeps me motivated to make more videos for you guys. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. See ya.
I would not ask of anyone what I would not do myself.